So today we are going to study in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 8, item 20. Blessed are those who have their eyes closed. And just before you start the reading, you can read the whole item. Who's going to read to us, Ryder?
See, yes.
Oh, thank you, Sir Ryder. You can read the whole item 20, okay? And I just want to make sure that these are not part of the Sermon of the Mountain, okay? This statement is it's not one of the parts on the Sermon of the Mount. And we're going to talk about that soon.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Blessed are those who have their eyes closed. 20. Dear friends, you have called me. Why? Is it to make me lay hands on the poor distressed person who is here and heal her? Ah, what suffering, good God. She has lost her sight and darkness has been made on her. Poor child, let her pray and hope. I do not know how to work miracles, me, without the will of the good God. All the cures that I have been able to obtain and which have been reported to you, attribute them only to God, which is parent to all. In your afflictions, therefore, always look up to heaven and say from the bottom of your heart, O God, heal me, but let my sick soul be healed before the infirmities of my body. May my flesh be chastised, if necessary, so that my soul may rise to you with the whiteness it had when you created it. After this prayer, my good friends, which the good Lord will always hear, strength and courage will be given to you. And perhaps also this healing which you will have asked only fearfully as a reward for your selflessness. But since I am here in an assembly devoted above all to studying, I will tell you that those who are deprived of sight should consider themselves blessed in their atonement. Remember that Christ said that you needed to pluck your eye out if it was cause of evil, and that it was better that it be thrown into the fire than be the cause of your damnation. At last, how many on earth will one day curse in darkness for having seen the light? Oh, yes. How happy are those who in their atonement are struck in the eyesight. Their eyes will no longer be a subject of scandal and fall. They can live entirely in the life of souls. They can see more than you who can see clearly. When God allows me to go and restore eyesight to some of these poor sufferers and give them back the light, I say to myself, dear Lord, why do you ignore all the delights of the Spirit that lives in contemplation and love? You were not asked to see images that are less pure and less sweet than those that you have seen in your blindness. Yes, indeed. Blessed is the blind person who wants to live with God, happier than you are here. He or she can feel happiness, touch it, see other souls and soar with them in spiritual spheres that the predestined people of your very land cannot see. The open eye is always ready to make the soul tumble. The closed eye, on the contrary, is always ready to bring it up to God. Believe me, my dear good friends, blindness of the eyes is often the true light of the heart, while sight may often be the dark angel that leads to death. And now, a few words for you, my poor sufferer. Take hold and courage. If I said to you, my child, your eyes will be opened, how happy you would be. But who knows if this joy would not make you completely lose yourself? Have confidence in the good God who made happiness and allowed sadness. I will do whatever I am allowed to do for you, But in your turn, pray. And above all, think of everything that I have just told you. Before I leave, may all of you who are here receive my blessings. Billionaire Parrot Priest of Ars, Paris 1863.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Mm.
So this spirit, no, not spirit, Vianney, Jean-Baptiste Vianney. There is actually a, a book, a movie about him. He was a contemporaneous of Kardec. For those who doesn't know him, he used sign himself very often as curador. Cura is another word for priest. So priest of R is a little region in French called R. Um, Again, he was a contemporaneous of Kardec. He was born in 1786, died in 1859. So just one, his discarnation was just at about the time of publication of this book, of the Spirit's book, and he was a part, well, he was there, witness all the movement of the sciences and all that was going on at the time of the codification of Spiritism. And as a good Catholic priest of the time, he was very much against the sciences and was very much against all the teachings that Spiritism have brought. His story is a little bit interesting. You know, he was born in a small part of France, Lyon, in the rural side. Um, didn't get a chance to educate himself. Didn't really spoke English well, French well. He spoke in that region. They have their own dialect. But since a very young age, he wanted to be a priest. You know, everything he wants to do was to become a priest with very limited opportunities to educate himself in that part of France where he was. He was considered to be of limited intelligence, let's say. I'm not going to call him a dumb one. No, but have limited intelligence. Have very limited um, French the language, basically no Latin. And if you remember all the masses, everything that was done in the Catholic Church at that time was done in Latin. So he really struggled, but with so much persistence, he was able to become a priest. And a priest of limited abilities, intellectually speaking, he was placed in this small place in Ars. But very devoted, extremely devoted to God. And as we know now, no, he was a very powerful medium. And he would spend his entire time basically in the confessionary, trying to assist individuals. And he was able to perform good amount of cures, not only physical, but in works of these obsessions. And of course, I mean, using word cures is obsessions, mediums. That's now that we have all this lexicon available to us, right? At his time, they would call those things miracles. We know better today, right? And he's the one who said that phrase that Samson was able to defeat a whole army with the mandible of a donkey. What can you do, oh God, with a whole donkey? Referring to himself, right? So during his priesthood in Ars, he he was actually canonized. He performed what's so-called miracles with a tremendous amount of cures, and And of course, after his discarnation in 1859, after being very much against Kardec and against the sciences, end up in the spiritual ordering, got to understand the reality of our spiritual nature and the truth of the codification of Kardec, and becomes one of the workers with Kardec in the codification, so much so that he's part of this book. And I'm saying all that to make sure that you understand that this statement comes from him. It does not come from the sermons of the mount. And because people after his death would pray for him, ask him, and for cures, and that was the case of this young lady who went to look for cure for her blindness that she contracted um, later in life. It's still a child, but no, was not born blind, which is extremely, exponentially more difficult than being born blind. If you're born blind and never seen the light, that's not good, but much more manageable than having the light, seeing things, and then lose it. It's much more difficult. And you see that in this small passage, the first thing he asks is why?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you here? And that's something that Christ would very often do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he asked the same thing to the blind. Man, the blind man approached me. What do you want from me? And it seems to be a silly question. What does the blind want? He wants to see, right? But what do you mean by you want to see? To see what and what for, right? And that is all this passage over here is what is it that you want to see and what for? What what this vision gonna bring to you of goodness to you, right? In his state of humbleness, he says, attribute all the so-called miracles to God, not to me. I can do nothing, but I'm just a little instrument at the hands of God. And he suggests that before we ask for anything from heaven, for miracles, that you should do this wonderful little prayer. Oh God, heal me, but let my sick soul be healed before my infirmities of my body. May my flesh be chastised, if necessary, so that my soul may rise to you with the whiteness it had when you created. What he's suggesting here is put you as the eternal spirit above this wonderful instrument that you have to be used as an instrument to improve the spirit. So make me as a eternal spirit healed first before you choose to heal that instrument that I'm using right now. That I spirit take should take priority of the instrument that you placed in my hand.
Mm.
And in this prayer, it has more also, because if you are really able, because this prayer, what this prayer going to do to you? It will allow you to elevate yourself to a point in which he says over here that you give you a lot more energy, a lot more confidence and faith for two things: to to mobilize the good energies that we have within ourselves, something that he always says in our prayers, especially during the passes, And we have a tendency to look at the negative side of things. We say of the bombardment of the bad energies that we send to ourselves with our negative thoughts, with our hates, with our angers, and it's so true. But the opposite is also true. The positive, the curative energies that we send to every single cell of our body with positive thoughts, with faith, with active resignation, with the selflessness that he mentions over here. These are also the powerful energies that we have in ourselves that we can promote the cure of our own body. Now, if that cure is not possible during this incarnation, that same prayer will give you the courage, the strength for active resignation. That you may not be able to have your sight recovered in this incarnation, particularly to this young lady. But with this prayer, you gain the courage, the discipline, what is necessary for you to endure this trial or expiation, whatever the case may be, without compromising yourself to the need of even more difficult trials, more difficult patients in the future, and more important, that this blindness may be the instrument that will heal you, the stern spirit, talking to this young lady. And that's his invitation for us to see the challenges, the difficulties that we may face in our lives, always with this active resignation, meaning I want to do anything that is possible to minimize this suffering. If in case of a physical illness, I'm going to use what advancements of medicine, of science can do for me to make this instrument to serve me as best as possible. I'm gonna use also the alternative medicine, whatever is there in terms of assistance that I can get to minimize my suffering, to minimize my pain. I'm not gonna sit on the corner and say, God, God intends me to go through this, so let be it. I'll just sit here and do nothing. No, you need to be proactive and do what we can to make this instrument work the best as possible for us. Once that's not possible, then we resign to the will of God, because there are things that is beyond our control, that is beyond our possibilities. Then we must resign without rebelliousness. And through this prayer, through this sincerity, we gain that ability to face those difficult trials. He spends a long time on eyesight itself, but you can always convert, in the case here is blindness, to any other um, difficult challenge that we may face, of physical, of emotional, of intellectual. Him himself is a good example, someone with supposedly with very limited intellectual abilities, um, someone who was very unlikely to be able to ever become a priest, which requires a good amount of studies and education. Through tremendous amount of persistence and faith, was able to get to that objective. And when he mentions over here that you should try to see with the eyes of the soul. the things that the physical eyes cannot see. There is tremendous amount of things in this world that you should be able to see, but you are completely blind to it because the eyesight, the physical eyesight, corrupts us very often. And we are completely blind to many wonderful things that is happening around us because we only have our eyes directed of the physical things of secondary importance. Not say that is not important, but should not be the priorities. And what he invites us here to do with when he mentioned about eyesight is do not neglect the wonders that there is in this physical world. Do not neglect the beauty of having an eyesight, but also do not neglect the ability to see with the eyes of the soul, the things that transcends the physical, which there for everyone. And that he perceives that as a spirit, when he returns to the spiritual world, when he sees all the beauties that can be perceived by the soul, with or without the ability to see with the physical eyes. He at the very end, he basically go back to that same small prayer that I mentioned before, when he says, "And now a few words for you, my poor sufferer. Take hope and courage," which is basically the same prayer that he suggested that before, right? If I said to you, my child, your eyes will be opened, how happy you would be. But who knows if the joy would not make you completely lose yourself. Have confidence in God, who made happiness and allowed sadness. I will do whatever I am allowed to do for you, but in your turn, pray, and above all things, of everything that I have just told you, and think of everything that I have just told you. So the question that I have for us here now is, all right, so something happens to us, forget eye blindness or diagnosis of a new physical problem, a cancer, whatever, glaucoma, anything. And we go to someone that is performing cures, and we go full of hope that that person will, do whatever they do, give us a pass, do the little spiritual surgery, whatever it is, and it's going to cure us. And what we hear from that person is what this person that showed to that young lady, how would we feel?
Great. Yeah.
How would happen? What would happen to our faith? Would say, I didn't come here to heal this nonsense. I came here to get my eyes back. I didn't come here to improve, to get a moral lessons. I come here to be able to see again. I come here for you to cure my new cancer, my new glaucoma, whatever the case may be. How would we individually, and I'm not asking for anyone to answer, please. You just think about yourself, just reflect upon that yourself. How would you feel about that? How much faith do we have? How much ability to reason to these words do we actually have? To accept and to agree with this man was saying over here now, to have this active resignation. To accept the idea that that blindness or that cancer or that whatever thing may be the cure of I spirit, maybe the bitter medication that I have to swallow now, maybe the big needle in my arms that hurts like hell, that will cure not my physical body, but I spirit. And again, this message was from 1863, right? It was a few years after his death. He died in 59. All right, any comments? Any questions?
This is a very challenging part of the messages, right? Because I think of the diseases of the problems that we may face in our life, I know that everybody struggles with the idea of blindness, right? Because eyesight is so important in our physical lives that every time we go through this passage is always very difficult,
Yeah, and
discuss it, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing that is important, because when you read it, that it's about that girl who become blind, and he goes asking for help. She goes asking for help, full of faith that she's going to be helped. So I want to put ourselves in her shoes right now. I want to be that girl right now. I just lost my eyesight, but I have faith that this guy could help me. And I go over there, and that's what I hear from that guy. How would I feel?
Yeah.
It's like going to the doctor, and you tell the doctor, "Oh, I have this pain, I have this," and he'll sit there and tell you, "Don't worry about it, you'll be fine." The doctor, "I'm having this pain." No, it's no worry, go home, and without giving you anything other than go home and pray. What doctor will say that? Maybe one out of a million, but it makes you think, especially now what we're going through this pandemic. So many people are suffering and and don't know which way to turn. Some do, some don't. But at the end of the day, is we have to live a life of not so much material. I hate to say material, but more spiritually. Understand that we're here for a while, and we're gonna go back. So it's very difficult to think of that. I have this lady that lives in my building, who's a blind lady. As a matter of fact, I always think of her now, just speaking about blindness. And she's a beautiful person, and every time people see her, she has a cane, and she knows where she's going. She goes to the supermarket, she shops on her own, she has a cane. She is so meticulous in how she lives her life. And I sometimes look at her and stare at her and say, my God, this lady has to be so strong. I mean, I don't really know what's really going on inside of her, but she looks so calm and goes through life. I mean, the way I see her, when we're going out the door, everybody runs open the door, and it's like she's like calming everybody down. It's okay. I could do it on my own. She crosses the street on her own. It's just an amazing thing to look at. But like this priest is saying here, is that we have to live and understand that we're here, but we're here, that we have the five senses. Use them, yes, but things come in life, and we have to deal with them and have this strength of faith and and moving on with life, that we're not alone, and that we always have someone there to assist and help us. But this is a beautiful passage. I love this priest, how he comes and explains to us what is important with he uses blindness. It's very hard, just like Joanna said.
Yeah, because at the end it's a choice that we make, right? And it's a choice to think like, all right, I lost my vision, I'm blind. And just use the again example of blindness that was given to us. I'm gonna have to live with it. How am I gonna live with it? In a state of anger, cursing God for giving me this dreadful destiny, or am I gonna use the example of so a lot of people out there who are blind, who are extremely successful without the eyesight. We have plenty of examples out there. The one that you just gave us, someone who is completely independently living her life, doing the shoppings and going and living almost like one of us, except that doesn't have the eyesight. At the end, that is a choice that we make. And that choice may take a while, may require some time of adjustment, but to reach a choice that is a more positive to us, if we have this understanding that Spiritism offers us, if you have this kind of stories that we are doing right now of the exercise of an active resignation, it makes things easier. The individual who loses his eyesight and become rebellious towards God or anything else, who never had the opportunity to sit to this lecture, to these stories that we're doing now, it's not a good thing. But the individual who loses his eyesight and has the opportunity to be exposed to this kind of reading that we're doing right now, it's 10,000 more difficult, more offensive to the natural laws than the one who had not had this opportunity. And this is where these studies, this is why Spiritism is so good to us. It gives us the opportunity to have that strength. It gives us this extra gear that at times we need to make the better choices. Because at the end, again, it's a choice. And this is a wonderful tool to help us to make better choices.
I can understand how the things that we see, those of us who have eyesight, can lead us astray. But I'm wondering how we gain the benefit of the calm that you see in a person who is blind without being blind. What do they see that we don't see? Or what do they feel that we don't feel? Do we have any insight into that?
I'm not sure if you understand the question. The blind without being blind? Well,
No.
I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is, I understand that those of us who have physical sight can be led astray by things that we see because we value things in different ways, especially without being taught. But I'm wondering, is there a way for us to gain the power of what this lady you talked about, who is blind and calm and has control of her life, what is available to us who have sight to gain that power?
This is what we are doing right now. The ability to transcend ourselves beyond the material, the physical, to be able to see with the eyes of the soul, not neglecting the physical eyes, of course. The individual who have lost their eyesight is more likely, not that they will, but it's more likely to seek treasures beyond matter, because some of those treasures become some kind of meaningless. A very simple example, and very in relationship, let's say in conjugal relationship, our eyesight may lead us to prefer looks than the soul, so to say, of that person. So you may be led through our sights to look for relationships of what is attractive to the eyes and neglect what is attractive to the soul. It was a very simple example, but if we can use that example for many other things as well.
I understand what you're saying, and all I'm asking is for the development of a process to awaken us to that process of differentiating between the ephemeral and what's important.
It's what we're doing right here, right now.
Exactly. The very fact that you are here means that you are making that effort. Now to achieve what the inner peace that they have, that's individual. It's on each one of us, but the search for it is through this channel or other channels similar to this, meditation or working to help and assist others. These are the things we discuss all the time. So giving the importance to the material things or things of the physical life, but only to the relative importance. And because our society gives it priority over spiritual things. And what we always try to say here is that the spiritual things should be the priority without neglecting the physical material things that are important to our daily lives, because when you are struggling to make ends meet in your physical life, you have no time to think about other things most of the time. So you have to find some comfort in our physical material life to allow you to be better prepared to deal with the spiritual life. I know it shouldn't be the way, but it is this way for the vast majority of us. So if we are distracted with the problems of our physical life, they are too much. Sometimes we cannot dedicate ourselves to our spiritual search. So it's always a balance. It's hard, but I think the very fact that we are here, it's already a search for this inner peace that you say that some of these blind people, and not all of them, some of these blind people have.
And makes us think also on to sin for the things that we do, and to sin for the things that you neglect to do.
I'm sorry, what was the first word you said?
To sin, to error, to miss the
Oh, sin.
target.
Okay.
Yeah. For the things that we do, doing something bad, doing something wrong. And to sin as well for the things that we do not do, the things that we neglect to do. And that goes to the in the case of eyesight, of closing our eyes to the things that it's right there in front of us. Again, a simple example, a child in the corner, hungry and bleeding that we see, and we neglect to do anything else. And that creates the conflict within us because we know that we should act. We have the eyesight to see that child over there and the opportunity to do something to that child. Just a crazy example here. And you neglect to do it. And then we say, I wish I had not seen that child. I wish I had not seen that thing. Then I would not have the conflict of the angel on one side and the devil on the other side, and the angel says, "Go do something." That's what Christ would do in your thing. And the angel say, and the devil on the other side say, "Forget it. Just pretend you don't see it. Move on. You have better things to do with your life." That creates that conflict, that problem. Better off not having the eyesight, so I don't have to deal with that conflict.
That I'll disagree with.
Okay, so how do you disagree with it?
It's not better to, I think it's better to take action, period.
I agree with you. I'm talking about creating the conflict. It's already passed. You should have taken action. You should not. You did not, and now you live with the conflict. Now, 12 hours later, when you lay in bed and you say, "Oh my God, I saw that child over there. I saw that I could do something, at least call an ambulance for that child. I did nothing." Better off if I have not seen that child. Because now we do talk about 12 hours later. You already did not take action when you should have taken. Now you have the conflict. And now you reflect on it and you say, "Oh man, I wish had not seen that child. I wish I was blind at that moment and not had seen it." Now, yeah, I agree with you. You should have taken action. That is the best. Too late now. Now the conflict is established, especially for us spiritists.
Tomorrow is another day.
Yeah.
Yep. But the conflict is already there, or should be, because that conflict is a positive, actually. Because if you don't have it, then, man, that's really, really a sign of tremendous ignorance. And that's what very often you see from especially the books of André Louis, that we repent the things in such a bad way that we compromise ourselves, compromise our own sight. Like in the memoir of a suicide, the guy who strangled the love of his life and keeps saying, "I wish I had no hand. These hands are good for nothing." You may put yourself in a state of regret and not being guilty. I'm sorry, not being able to get out of it. They say, "I wish I didn't have sight because these eyes are good for nothing. They see things, but not. I do nothing with the vision that I got. Those eyes are good for nothing." And then you compromise yourself in such a way that end up not having an eyesight. The same way that spirit in the memoirs of suicide lost his hand.
Actually, the main character of Memoirs of Suicide kills himself because he turns blind, right?
That's right.
So it's very appropriate to bring that book. and you know, it's 600 pages of consequence of an act of a suicide because of as a consequence of becoming blind. Right?
Yeah. It's a natural law, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. You know, if you don't use a member, that member atrophiates.
Yeah.
Morally, if you don't use your sight for goodness, it may atrophiate as well, morally. Okay, any more comments? Can you read 21?
Okay. When an affliction is not a consequence of the acts of current life, we must seek the cause of it in a previous life. The so-called whims of faith are nothing but the effects of God's justice. God does not impose arbitrary punishment. It wants that between fault and punishment, there is always a correlation. If in its kindness, God threw a veil over our past acts, it nevertheless puts us back on the path, saying, whoever lives by the sword shall perish by the sword. Words which can be translated thus: we are always punished according to the nature of our sin. If therefore someone is afflicted by the loss of sight, it is because sight has been for this individual a cause of fall. Perhaps he or she was also the cause of loss of sight in another person. Perhaps someone has become blind from the excessive work imposed on them, or as a result of ill treatment, lack of care, etc. And then the culprit suffers the pain of retaliation. The individuals themselves, in their repentance, were able to choose their atonement, which brings us to these words of Jesus. If your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away.
Thanks. So for every event in our life, the one that we label as good may not necessarily be, but we label as good, the ones that we label as bad, and the ones that we may label as good while here in this physical world, when you go back to the spiritual, say, well, that I called good was actually the bad, and the ones that I called bad was actually the good. But every event will have a cause, but more important, you have an objective, have a purpose. Because only to have the cause, okay, so now I lost my eyes because A, B, C, and D. But then I ask, all right, so what is the objective of losing my eyes now? What is it supposed to do for me? Coming to the very basic principle that without it, none that we're talking about here makes any sense. That God is absolute love and justice, and everything that happens to us leads to goodness, according to the Paul of Tarsus, right? All concurs for the good. What is the purpose? What is the objective of that? That's more important than looks for the cause. Yes, there is a cause. No, there is no effect without a cause. That's a law in science. But more important than a cause, there is a purpose, there is an objective. And sometimes we can go back into this reincarnation and find the causes right here. Very often it is right here. But there are times that we can't. And if the cause is not in this incarnation, it has to be from previous incarnation. There is a cause somewhere for my present blindness, for my present diabetes, for my present oncological process, for my extreme poverty, for my extreme richness, any challenges like those. There is a cause, but more important than a cause, there is an objective, there is a purpose. And the purpose, the objective is always to educate us, right? If you cannot find the cause here in this present reincarnation, then it is in previous incarnation. But God, in His absolute benevolence, puts a veils in our past so we cannot see our ugliness, can see our ignorance from the past, because perhaps we could not be able to do it ourselves. So again, going back to the extremely guilty, they make us to choose, or leads us to a next reincarnation with one or another defect. When you're talking about blindness, can continue with blindness. So my extreme guilty leads me to choose to come in without the eyesight, because I think there will be a great learning tool that I'll be used to improve myself as a spirit. And when I arrive here in this next reincarnation without the eyesight, or lose the eyesight during that incarnation, I will not have, I'm not going to be able to see or to know the cause of it. But there is a cause. But more important, what is it that I do with that? So I make the choice. Let's assume that I make the choice, that in my next reincarnation, I think that not have the eyesight will be a very good instrument, a tool for me to progress, for me to pay off, so to say, my debts with the divine laws. And my request is accepted, and they let me come here with the eyesight, or to lose it later in life. And I have again a choice to go along with the plan or to rebel against that plan. But if it happens, it is always at the end for the eternal spirit, for a good thing. And our objective in every incarnation is to better ourselves morally and intellectually. You're not always going to be able to see the causes here. Sometimes we are. I think to be looking for causes is maybe in some instances even dangerous. But always look for the purpose, for what for. What can I do with this instrument? How can I make lemonade with the lemons that you gave me? Okay, comments?
Yeah, this passage is from Jesus. If your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. These are always very difficult to study, because people tend to interpret it literally, and we have always to understand the true message of Jesus, right? What does he really mean? It doesn't mean that if your arm causes you to sin, cut it off. And I recently saw a TV series that one of the main character, he literally cut his hand because he thought that his hand was causing him to sin. And and of course the consequences are sad, because you cannot be of your right mind if you are going to cut your hand because you have sinned, right? But
what's the name of this series, Joe?
I forgot. I will try to remember, but I don't remember right now.
Okay. Thank
It's
you.
it's twins, same
Twins.
actor playing twins, and one of the twins is it's
Twins.
kind of a yeah.
That's Netflix,
I think it was HBO, but I'm not sure.
HBO. Okay, I'm looking for a new series to follow. Okay, thank you.
It's not new. It's like 6 months old or something like that.
Ah, okay. Okay, I'll figure out here. Thank you. Twins. Okay. Wonderful.
Actually, when I said to sin for the things that we do, for the wrong that we do, but also to sin for the things that we do not do, I actually got it from the idea when I read this sentence again. If your eyes cause you to sin, tear your out and throw it away. Because I always think of, if my eyes cause me to sin, what do you mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I keep looking to see what that making me sin. But I think in terms of eyesight, as I reflect on it, to waste this valuable tool that we have, the eyesight, and ignore the things that we see, ignore the opportunity to act when Christ tells us, you have heard what was told to you, do not do to others what you would not like the others to do to you, but instead, do to others what you'd like others to do to you in the same situation. He puts us in a situation that we must act. To not be bad is not enough. You must be good. So Christ put us in a position with this new paradigm that to not act in itself is a sin. And I think that most of our sins with our eyes is mostly for the things that you neglect to see, that we ignore to see, to ignore to act, that you pretend that you don't see it. Because when I think of sinning with our eyes, what is it? You can't even think what is such a big sin for seeing some things. I think it's much of a sin for the lack of action than anything else, than to action.
That's it exactly.
And again, go back, no punishment. We all know that, right? The conflict. We are created from love to love. And when you're not acting love, we created that conflict that goes against our nature. And that is the source of many of our sins, many of our sufferings, our problems, creating that conflict. Okay, can we start a new chapter now?
Okay.
Unless anybody has anything else to say.
Chapter 9, blessed are the meek and the peacemakers. Insults and violence. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Matthew 5:5. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Matthew 5:9. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. Matthews.
Thanks. So here, we should take the insult and violence in a more transcendent way. You should see that not only physical, but see it's physical, emotional, intellectual offenses that we can, the ways that we can act. And the blessed are the meek. The meek here means the mild, the gentle, the tender.
Good.
Right? Not only very often we use the word meek as humbled, but beyond humbled, the mild, the one who is gentle, but is gentle on with words, with actions, all those things. And that's why you say Christ says, whoever says you fool, you'll be liable to the hell of fire. That the offense, the insults, maybe perhaps even worse with words than with a physical thing. We have to expand the insults and violence beyond the physical and think of the emotional. How can it be insulting and violent, physically, emotionally, intellectually, in our relationships? Okay.
4. Through these maxims, Jesus has made a law of meekness, moderation, gentleness, affability, and patience. He therefore condemns violence, anger, and even all derogatory expressions toward one's fellow human beings. Raka was among the Hebrews a term of contempt which meant worthless person and was pronounced by spitting and turning the head. He goes even further, since he threatens with hellfire anyone who says to his brother or sister, "You fool." It is evident that here, as in all circumstances, the intention will aggravate or mitigate the fault. But in what way can its simple word have enough gravity to deserve such a severe reprobation? This is so because any offensive speech is the expression of a feeling contrary to the law of love. And charity, which must regulate the relationships of humans and keep harmony and union among them. Furthermore, such feeling is an attack on mutual benevolence and fraternity, and it maintains hatred and animosity. Finally, because after humility toward God, charity toward neighbor should be the first law of every Christian.
So again, it's very easy for us to condemn the physical aggressions, physical violence. No one will accept it. Physical insults anymore. It's against the law. I mean, you can go to jail if you make use of physical violence. But we need to go beyond that, and Christ has suggested us to go beyond that, to temper yourself, to temper your words, to become meek, to become gentle in your relationships as we speak. So when you curse someone, something as simple as "you fool," you are creating the conflict again, going against the natural laws. And of course, to that, we come to the intention. What is really your intention when you say A, B, or C? Did you have the intention to be insulting? Did you have the intention to be offensive? Or is just out of your ignorance, your inability to choose better words, so to say, that you have made those statements? And of course, if you had the intention of say something to hurt someone, we are much more guilty than someone who perhaps says the same the same words, in the same situation, but more of a, not the malicious ignorance, just plain ignorance, not evil ignorance, but just intellectual ignorance, so to say. So that one will be a lot less guilty, so to say. And it comes to the point that words matter. Words matter and matter a lot. What we can do with words is extremely important, and to be able to measure what we are saying, to think before we are saying, could avoid a lot of problems for ourselves and for others, especially for ourselves. To the issue of the offenses, when I was thinking, when I was reading this, because here we're talking about the sender, right? I am sending you energies with my words, right? When I say you fool, when I say raka and turn my right and speed to the side, I am the sender, right? But there is also the receiver. And there is two things here. If someone he went to Christ in his time, to Jesus in his time, and say, you fool, how much offended do you think Jesus would be?
Mm.
Zero, right? Why do we, when somebody comes and tells us, Elmo, you fool, why do I feel offended? Why do I receive that negativity and allows that person to reach his objective to offend me? What is it in my ignorance that I just play exactly at the hands of that person? Why am I not above that? I think we need to elevate ourselves, because there are a lot of people there, unfortunately, that comes with those words, they come with those attitudes, some of them maliciously, again, just evil minds, but those are just pure ignorant. If I receive those energies, if I internalize those energies, I think I'm pretty much at their levels. So we need to work ourselves above that. And there are those also that are the pseudo victims. I was thinking about it when I was reading that. So the ones that everything that somebody tells me, I feel that is offending me, is putting me down or something like that. So an example, let's say in our morning meetings, all of us together there, the PAs in neurosurgery, the supervisor says, we have a task over here for all of you. We need to accomplish this, we need to do this, I need to pick a person to do this. And there is A, B, C, and D over there, including myself, and they pick D. And the supervisor picks D. I want you to do this because you are well qualified to do this. You have all the skills to do this. You'll be very good at this task. And they pick that person. Then I come home, talk to my wife, and I say, that supervisor really offended me, really putting me down. I don't know what he or she has against me, but she told me that I am not qualified to do the task, that I do not have the skills to do the task. I don't know what she has against me. Do you understand here what I'm trying to say? Very often people are doing their thing, are saying their things, and because we have our own problems, whatever problem may be, whatever comes from outside You see it as an offense, as a violation. You see somebody try to put me down, try to demote me. When in reality, that supervisor just say that that person is good to do this. Didn't say that I'm bad to do this, that I cannot do this. Just pick someone else. But because I have my own problems. And that's why I'm saying that we really have to think ourselves as the receiver and read those messages as well. If I am being offended when somebody tells me something, I should reflect, what is it? Why am I being offended by this? Why the fact that my supervisor, just an example, pick someone else for that task, for that new position, whatever, why am I offended? Is it my pride? I have to be always number one. And I feel that I was not being placed as the number one. Is it something wrong with me and not with the sender? Because the issue of offenses, I feel that, and no, I don't want to go into very problematic situations in our society, that people feel offended, people feel they're being put down, being demoted, when in reality it's just a reality. It's just what it is. It's just that in our group, there is a person over there that's much better to do that task than I am. It's not an offense. It is a reality. It is a fact. And very often we close our eyes to those facts. And you choose to be offended, and you have to reflect why. Why is that? Is it out of pride? Is it out of ambition? Because it's very easy to point a finger, oh, that's what offends us, but was that really an offense? If that sender had that intention, he's going to have to deal with that. He's already committed this, him or herself. But what about me as the receiver as well?
I always remember Chico Xavier's answer to when they asked him why he never replied to the attacks that he suffered, right?
Yep.
And then his answer was, if they are right, there is nothing that I can say. If they are wrong, they don't deserve my answer.
See the beauty of clear conscience. So very often think this, the perpetual victims, it's people they always see themselves as the victim. To me, it's a sign of a very conflicted conscience. So someone like Chico has pretty much a clear conscience. I'm not going to be bothered with anything. It could offend him. It could not offend him. He could try, but that'll just bounce it right back to us. Never affect him. Why are we so affected? Okay, let me see the timer last time.
Okay.
Yeah, we have time to finish this.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. 5. Well, what does Jesus mean by these words? Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. In which he comments, renouncing the goods of this world and promises those of heaven. While waiting for the goods of heaven, humans need those of the earth to live. Jesus only recommends us not to attach more importance to the latter than to the former. By these words, he means that to this day, the goods of the earth are monopolized by violent ones in detriment of those who are meek and peacemakers, and that often lack the necessary, while others have the superfluous. Jesus promises that justice will be done to them on earth as it is in heaven, because they are called the children of God. When the law of love and charity shall become the law of humanity, there will be no more selfishness. The weak and the peaceful will no longer be exploited or crushed by the strong and the violent. Such will be the state of the earth when, according to the law of progress and the promise of Jesus, it becomes a happy world through the eviction of the wicked.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So isn't it, it suggests for us to think in terms of equilibrium and in terms of priorities, right? As the manual says, we live here now. We belong here now. Although we are eternal spirits, our true home is the spiritual realm. We are here in this physical world now. It should make this the best place for us to live as well. And in order to make this the best place for us to live now, we have to prioritize a few things. And the necessary things for us to live a good life here in the physical world. Of course, we have the material needs that we have to take care of it. The minimum required to have a comfortable life, and I dare to go beyond food, water, shelter. I think we definitely have to expand us as humans above the animalia. As animals, all you need is that. You know, water, food, shelter. And some will reproduce, some will not. You know, depends of which species you belong, you'll never reproduce. You'll never be an alpha male, so to say. You'll be able to reproduce. Okay, so your genetic pool will not perpetuate. Depends on the species that we are. But I think as humans, I dare to go beyond the minimum required to survive, but the minimum required to have a comfortable life. And I'm going to put in modern contemporaneous days. Justice, equality, freedom of expression, all those things, all those values are meaningful to have a comfortable life. And that's something that we need to work for the goodness of all of us, myself included, but to everyone as much as we can. And by doing that, we will transform this planet. I resent the idea that this planet will be transformed into the planet of regeneration because that's the law of progress. No, we will transform this planet in the planet of regeneration, yes, because it's a law of progress, but something that we are going to do. That we are going to transform this planet. It's our job to do so. And when the average shifts from having more good people than bad people, then we establish here a new era for the planet. Now it becomes a planet of regeneration, no longer a planet of trials and expiation. There is something that we need to do here now. And when Christ says, the meek shall inherit the earth, that's exactly what he means. That with our meekness, with our action towards goodness, with our action, not just liking the ideas, but action of exercise those things that we like very much, justice, liberty, freedom of expression, um, providing for the poor, protecting the weak. We all like this, you all agree with that. But what do we do? What's your action towards all those things that we like? When most of us put our best effort in that direction, then we will shift this planet from trial and expiation to a planet of regeneration. And we will inherit this planet through our action. Not a gift, not a law of progress period is going to happen regardless. No. It's not despite of us, but it is of us doing it. Of course, each one of us with our limitations. Of course, each one of us is starting from home. The freedom of expression, the protection, the assistance inside our home first, then in our neighborhood. And as I forgot his name said, when I modify myself, I modify my family. When I modify my family, I modify my neighborhood. When I modify my neighborhood, I modify the entire world. But I start from me in my small circle, and that circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's how we are going to, the good, the meek, going to inherit this world. Eventually, it's going to shift. There will be most people with this idea, with this state of mind, with these energies of meekness, that will shift, and the good will prevail over evil. And then when I call it, the prophecy of Jesus will take place. But again, action. Okay, comments?
Yeah, this passage, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Right? We keep talking about our life is not here; is in the spiritual world. So every time that we come through this passage, wow, inherit the earth. What does it mean? Is it not really what's important is not the spiritual world? So why should I care about inheriting this earth? When we put in the perspective of reincarnation, and that we are going to come back here, that we want to inherit a better world, it's for ourselves, right? Like Vivaldo said, we are going to be
Right.
our great granddaughters and great grandsons. So
yeah. So very often now at this point in my life, if I plant a tree that you only give fruits 70 years from now, most likely I'm the one who gotta eat from that tree.
Yeah.
If you think like
Exactly.
that. It's, I don't want to politicize anything, it's hard, but it's an spiritist or reincarnationist has to be pro climate control, must be pro elimination of pollution as much as possible, must be pro all those things, because we're going to come back here. what are we doing right now that when you come back, we're going to find this place better or worse?
Okay. Right.
Okay, comments? Think it's enough for today?
Yes. I'll stop here. Before we close, next Sunday, which is the third Sunday of the month, we will study On the Way to the Light. And this Thursday, we start the Spirit's book again, the introduction of the Spirit's book. Okay?
And we will have the mediums after, okay?
Yes. We'll go back. So,
All right, I think I'll make it the final prayer, if you don't guys
okay.
don't mind.
No.
Dear God, beloved Master Jesus Christ, the good spirits responsible to guide us, to illuminate us. We are grateful for the opportunity given to us to be exposed to these beautiful words of the gospel of Christ, for the assistance of benevolent spirits who brings to us those enlightening messages. It is upon us the responsibility to utilize these tools in our ignorance. Very often we fail to do so. So we ask with humbleness to be guided, to be inspired, to make good use of all of the lessons they receive here. At this moment of so much conflict, division, let us do our part to eliminate hate as much as we can, to promote union as much as we can, to have courage, to have discipline, to expose our Christianity in our homes, in our relationships, in our place of work. That we may be able to measure the power of our words and use them always when it's truthful, when it's good, when it's useful. We understand, beloved Master Jesus Christ, that to follow you requires strength and courage. And you also understand that you are and will be with us, now and always. For that we are grateful, and we ask to have a peaceful, productive week, and permission to close this meeting. So be it.